The basement watch. They told me the basement shift was easy. No customers. No drunks staggering in at 3 a.m. No angry bosses breathing down your neck. Just humming pipes, a coffee that always tasted faintly of metal, and the slow tick of a clock that felt more like a heartbeat than time. I liked it that way. Predictable. Quiet. A man could vanish down there, and the world wouldn't notice. The basement itself was carved out of old concrete, the kind that sweated in the night and left your boots damp by morning. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like tired bees, and the walls carried this constant low groan, as if the building had lungs of its own. My desk was wedged between a wall of flickering security monitors and a file cabinet no one had opened in years. It was, in its way, a coffin of safety. No one bothered me. No one asked questions. And for a while, I thought that was all I wanted, just me in the shadows. But basements have long memories. They remember things better forgotten. Every night, when the building above went still, I'd catch these little details. A door on the monitor swinging an inch open when I was sure I'd locked it. Footsteps in the pipes like water hammering, but off rhythm, human somehow. At first, I told myself it was nothing, just echoes, just the building settling. But here's the thing, the longer you sit in the dark, the more the dark sits with you. I could feel it then, watching from the corners of the monitors, waiting. The basement was no longer just concrete and pipes, it was a throat. And I had willingly walked straight into its mouth. The footsteps became a ritual. At first they came once a night, a single pass like someone pacing above my head. But then they multiplied. 4 steps, pause. 6 steps, pause. Closer each time like a countdown I couldn't see but could feel in my bones. I went through every camera feed, every angle. The monitor showed empty halls, locked doors, stillness. Yet the sound was undeniable. Heel on concrete, heel on concrete. It got so loud one night I whipped around, certain someone was behind me. Nobody, just the hum of the pipes and the cold breath of the basement wrapping around my neck. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe old plumbing, maybe echoes from the street. But the footsteps began answering me. When I stopped, they stopped. When I moved, they followed. This wasn't a building settling. This was something listening. Then came the smell, wet copper and earth like blood buried under soil. It drifted from the far end of the hall where the old storage rooms were sealed off. The odor clung to my uniform, my hair, my dreams. I started locking myself in the control room, but even the lock felt useless. Thin metal between me and whatever crawled those halls. One night, around 3:13 a.m., I remember because the clock ticked so loud it made my teeth ache. The lights flickered. A single pulse, like a blink. In that blink, one of the monitors flashed an image, something crouched low at the edge of the hall, a shape too human to be a shadow and too still to be alive. It was gone the next frame, but I felt its presence like static in my skin. I called out then, my voice cracking. Who's there? Silence. Not empty silence, heavy silence. A silence that breathes, the kind that feels like an answer. From that night on, the basement became a trap. The lights dimmed when I walked past certain corners. The cameras fuzzed out in patterns of like blind spots appearing exactly where I needed them least. The footsteps didn't just follow anymore. They circled, and I began to understand. This wasn't just something passing through the building. It was something that lived down here, and it knew I had noticed it. The lock clicked, but the footsteps didn't stop. They pressed against the door, slow and deliberate, as if mocking me. Each thud rattled through the frame, shaking the thin glass of the monitors. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break the silence itself. I grabbed the radio, fingers slipping with sweat. Static. Nothing but static. Not a single voice on the other end. I tried again, my breath hissing between my teeth. Still nothing. It was as if the whole building had been emptied of sound, leaving only me and the thing outside that door. The lights above me buzzed, flared, and went out. Darkness swallowed the room whole. For a heartbeat, the only glow came from the monitors, each screen cutting in and out, flickering with white noise. And then in one frame I saw it, inside the control room, crouched in the corner. Not outside, not behind the locked door, inside. I stumbled back, knocking over the chair, my lungs clawing for air. The shadow moved like liquid, stretching long across the floor, reaching for me. No face, no features, just hunger in a shape my brain refused to accept. I had two choices: run deeper into the basement where the dark was endless, or go for the stairwell door and face whatever waited in the light above. My legs chose before my mind did. I lunged for the handle, ripping it open, and the lights blazed back to life with a scream of electricity. For half a second, I thought I was safe. But there it was, inches from my face, rising up from the floor like it had been part of the concrete itself. Its outline flickered like a bad signal struggling to tune in. I could feel its heatless breath, could hear the static bleed into my ears like whispers. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just hurled myself through the stairwell, boots slamming against metal, my own scream echoing so loud it chased me upward. Behind me, the door groaned as if something heavier than the world itself was pushing through. And that was the moment I knew. There was no shift, no job, no paycheck worth staying in that basement. Because whatever lived down there wasn't meant to be seen. And now it had seen me. I didn't tell anyone. What could I say? That the cameras showed me screaming at shadows? That something without a face crawled out of the walls to greet me? They'd laugh, or worse, they'd nod and write me up for a psych evaluation. So I swallowed it down, wore the mask of normal, and tried to convince myself I hadn't left pieces of my sanity on those cold concrete stairs. But the basement never let go. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back there. The hiss of static in my ears, that smear of black stretching across the floor. I started avoiding the night shift, swapped schedules, picked up lousy day jobs upstairs just to stay above ground. Still, every so often, I'd feel it. A tremor in the pipes, a flicker in the hallway lights, like the basement was reminding me it was still there, still waiting. Others noticed me unraveling. A coworker joked I looked like I hadn't slept in weeks. Another told me I jumped whenever the elevators groaned. I laughed it off, but inside I felt raw, like I'd been branded by something no one else could see. I tried to watch the tapes again, needed proof I wasn't crazy. But when I loaded the file, all I saw was me, sitting in that chair, eyes darting, lips moving, body tensing like prey. Then the moment I remembered the shadow reaching for me, on the screen there was nothing. Just me screaming at the corner of an empty room. That was worse than any monster, because now the story wasn't just mine, it was in the system. Archived, a loop of my terror without context, stripped of the thing that made it real. The whispers didn't stop. Even in daylight, I swore I could hear them, faint, like a radio tuned one station too far. I never caught the words, only the intent, a reminder, a claim. By the time the next guard took over the basement shift, I couldn't look him in the eye. I wanted to warn him, tell him to get out before it noticed him too. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just nodded like passing a curse forward. And as the elevator doors shut, sealing him below, I heard it again. Footsteps, faint, patient, waiting for me to listen. I left the job within a week, packed my locker, handed over the badge, and signed the papers with hands that still trembled. They thought I was just another guard burned out on graveyard shifts. They'll never know what really burned me out. That basement, with its breath in my ear and its silence that wasn't silence at all. On the surface, life looked the same. Daylight shifts, coffee in crowded diners, the chatter of people who never knew what it was like to sit alone underground, listening to something that didn't belong. But I was changed. Every hum of a fluorescent light made me flinch. Every dark corner felt like a door I should never open. I told myself I'd moved on, that it was behind me. Yet sometimes in the quiet hours just before dawn, I hear them again. Footsteps, soft, patient, like they followed me out, waiting for me to turn my head, waiting for me to see. And maybe that's the worst part. Not that it happened in the basement, but that it doesn't stay in the basement. Darkness has a way of traveling. It lingers in memory. It leaks into the edges of everyday life. Once it's noticed, it can't be unseen. So, was I losing my mind that night? Maybe. Or maybe I saw something no one else was meant to. Something old, something patient, something that doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. But I'll tell you this, I still see that corner when I close my eyes. And in that corner, the dark isn't empty. It never was. Because if nothing was there, then what was waiting for me? If you found yourself holding your breath through this story, don't forget to like the video. It helps the channel grow and brings these stories to more people who crave them. Subscribe for daily chills and unsettling truths, and share this with someone who thinks basements are safe. Thank you for watching and listening. Another story is waiting for you right now on your screen. Don't miss it. And until tomorrow, keep the lights on. The elevator that never arrived. Ever notice how some buildings carry secrets in their bones? You don't see it in the daylight. Too much chatter, too much bustle. But when the world goes quiet, when the city exhales and you're left standing in the hollow dark, those buildings whisper. They breathe. That was my life for nearly a year. Night shifts in a 30-story corporate tower nobody cared about after 8 p.m. The kind of place where the vending machine hummed louder than your thoughts, where the only thing alive at that hour was the hum of fluorescent lights and the soft scrape of my mop on marble floors. It was routine, predictable, safe. Except for one thing, at exactly 2:15 every morning, the elevator dinged. Always the same one, always the same time. The doors would slide open with that polite little sigh of hydraulics, and the car would be empty. No footsteps in the lobby, no visitors signed in, no one leaving the offices. Just that elevator, waiting, like it was offering me a ride. I used to tell myself it was a glitch, some timer miswired into the old system. Machines do funny things when left to themselves too long, but the longer it went on, the less it felt mechanical, the more it felt deliberate. And here's the part I don't admit to most people. I started to expect it. I'd pause in my work at 2:14, listening for that inevitable ding. Some nights I'd even drift toward it, standing just out of reach, staring at the yawning mouth of that elevator like it was daring me. And always, in the back of my head, a thought I didn't want to believe. This thing wasn't breaking down. It was calling. But temptation is funny. It wears you down. Curiosity gnaws at you like a rat in the walls. And one night, when the silence felt heavier than usual, I stopped resisting. Against every ounce of good judgment, I stepped inside that elevator. The instant my shoes touched the floor, the panel lit up on its own. No fingers on the buttons, no command from me. Just a hum, a flicker, and then something impossible. A number glowed where no number should have been. 13. There was no 13th floor in that building. It skipped from 12 to 14, just like so many towers do. A superstition dressed up as architecture. And yet, the elevator lurched upward. The cables groaned, the numbers ticked by, and my stomach tightened with every passing floor. Then came the ding. The doors peeled open like a wound. A corridor stretched before me. Offices abandoned decades ago. Paint blistered and peeling. Wallpaper sagged in damp sheets. The air reeked of mildew and something metallic like rust or blood. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead, most of them dead, the survivors flickering weakly, like stars fighting extinction. And then the sound. Whispers. Not one voice, but dozens. Layered, overlapping, threads of speech in a language I couldn't place. Male, female, young, old, it didn't matter. They weren't speaking to each other. They were speaking to me. I told myself it was the wind, some trick of air pressure moaning through vents. But the more I listened, the clearer the cadence became. A rhythm, a pattern. Almost words. My throat was dry. My body screamed to turn back, to hit the lobby button and run. But my legs betrayed me. They carried me down that hallway, toward doors warped with age, glass panels clouded and fractured. One swung ajar on its hinges, slow, deliberate, as though it had been waiting for me. That's when the lights flickered again, plunging me into brief, suffocating blackness. And in that momentary dark, I felt it. Breath. Hot and sour against my ear, though the corridor ahead was empty when the light stuttered back. I spun, heart pounding, but the elevator doors had already closed. I wasn't leaving. Not yet. The whispers didn't just surround me anymore. They invaded. Each word scraped against my skull, sharp, frantic, clawing for space in my head. My breath came shallow. My body knew before my brain did. I wasn't alone. The carpet darkened beneath the weak light, black shapes seeping outward as though shadows had grown veins. They slid along the floor, faster than footsteps, faster than thought, converging on me. My pulse throbbed in my throat. Then it came. A blur. A rush of movement that had no shape, no face, just presence. It slammed the air from the corridor, cold and suffocating. And in that storm of whispers and flickering light, a hand tore free from the black. Pale, gaunt, fingers impossibly long, curling like they'd been waiting, years upon years, for flesh to grip. I couldn't scream. My voice was gone. My instincts dragged me backward, legs shaking, lungs burning, and I bolted for the elevator. The car waited, doors yawning wide like salvation. I lunged inside and slammed my palm against the glowing lobby button. Nothing. The panel blinked, unresponsive. The air in the car thickened, pressing down like water. And outside in the corridor, that hand was still reaching. Slow now, deliberate, not chasing, claiming. "Move!" I roared, pounding the panel until my knuckles split. Finally, with a screech of metal, the door stuttered, jerked, and began to crawl shut. The thing surged forward, the shadows with it. The whispers erupted into a scream. I saw the hand extend, pressing through the narrowing gap, fingers trembling inches from my chest. The smell hit me then, mold, dust, and rot, decay given breath. Every nerve in me screamed that if it touched me, I'd never come back. Not to myself, not to this world. I pressed harder. The button cracked under my fist. The car groaned, shutters rattling, steel fighting steel. And then at the last possible moment, the door slammed shut. The scream on the other side was pure rage. It rattled through the walls, tore through my bones, and then silence. The elevator dropped, not smoothly, not like it should, but in a violent plunge, cables shrieking, gravity stealing me whole. I gripped the rail, knuckles white, certain this was the end. Certain I'd made the worst mistake of my life. The descent felt like forever. Each jolt of the cables rattled through my teeth, each screech echoing like laughter. I clung to the rail, praying the car would hold together, that the doors would open before the thing outside found another way in. When the bell finally chimed and the doors slid apart, I staggered forward, lungs dragging in air like I'd just broken the surface of deep water. The lobby was pristine, silent, no whispers, no rot in the air. No shadows stretching across the floor, just polished marble, potted plants, and the faint buzz of a vending machine humming in the corner. I stumbled out, nearly falling, my legs trembling beneath me. To anyone watching, I must have looked drunk, crazed, or both. I pressed my back against the glass doors, desperate for the chill of the night air beyond them, just to remind myself I was still alive. Later, when security reviewed the tapes, the truth hit harder than anything in that hallway. There I was, stepping into the elevator alone, my hands slamming against the panel, my body jerking like I was fighting off an invisible weight, my face twisted in pure terror, my mouth open in screams no one else could hear. But the corridor, empty. The car, empty. No hand, no shadows, nothing. The guard watching the feed gave me a look I'll never forget, pity mixed with unease. Like he was afraid of me, but more afraid of whatever I thought I'd seen. I tried to explain. Tried to tell him there was a 13th floor, that the elevator had taken me there, that the whispers were real. But the footage didn't lie. To them, I was losing it. And maybe they were right. Because when I went back the next day, broad daylight, people coming and going, voices echoing through the lobby, the elevator panel was ordinary. 12, 14, no 13. Still, at 2:15 a.m., when the world was quiet and the building slept, I could hear it in my head, the ding, the sliding doors, the silent invitation. And I knew the thing upstairs hadn't let me go. Not really. It was still waiting. Since that night, I've refused every graveyard shift offered. No amount of overtime could drag me back into that building after midnight. The managers think I quit because of burnout. Let them. It's easier than trying to explain what really happened. Still, life doesn't let you bury things that deep. Some nights, I cut through downtown to get home, and I passed that glass front lobby. The lights inside glow sterile and calm, the same as they always did. To anyone else, it's just another office tower. But for me, it's a scar. Because every so often, just as I'm crossing the street, I hear it. That soft mechanical ding, the one that doesn't belong to traffic lights or car horns. It's faint, but clear enough to turn my blood cold. And when I glance through the glass, the elevator doors are sliding open. Empty car, waiting. I don't go near it. I don't even breathe near it. I keep walking, head down, steps quick, because I know what's inside. Or maybe worse, I know what's not. And each time there's this gnawing certainty that it hasn't forgotten me. That one day when my luck finally runs out, the doors won't close fast enough. It's changed me. I move through the world differently now. I notice the hum of machines, the flicker of lights, the way silence bends in empty rooms. I used to think routine meant safety, predictability. But now I know, routine is just the mask things wear while they wait for you to slip. And maybe one night, when I'm tired, careless, or just curious enough, I'll hear that ding again and step inside. Only this time, I won't make it back to the lobby. So if you ever find yourself alone in a quiet building and an empty elevator opens for you at an hour when no one should be riding, don't step in. Trust me, some rides only go one way. Thank you for listening to tonight's story. If it unsettled you even a little, do me a favor. Like this video so more people find it. Subscribe if you want more of these stories delivered daily, and share this with someone who loves a good scare. Another story is waiting for you on your screen right now. Click it, and I'll meet you there tomorrow. The Parking Lot Caller. I was just another tired security guard pulling another long night shift. That's the kind of work that wears you down in slow, invisible ways. My nights blurred together. Stale coffee cooling in a styrofoam cup, the buzz of overhead fluorescents that hummed louder than my own thoughts, and the hollow echo of my boots as I circled the same lifeless halls. Routine was my comfort and my curse. Nothing ever happened, and I'd convinced myself that was a blessing. Better boredom than trouble. The parking lot was always the worst part of my patrol, wide, flat, and empty, stretching out like a desert of cracked asphalt beneath flickering lamps. Every shadow looked like it wanted to move. Every silence seemed too loud. Still, I told myself it was just a lie. Just lines of painted concrete waiting for morning commuters. No ghosts, no mysteries, just space. That's when it came. A voice. Thin, broken, and crackling through my radio like static had grown lungs. Not dispatch, not any of the guys on duty. A stranger. 2 words, soft but sharp enough to stop me in my tracks. Help me. I froze, breath catching halfway. My hand tightened on the radio, waiting for the follow-up call. None came. Just static fading into silence like it had never been there. But something inside me shifted, the kind of primal instinct that tells you the world is no longer ordinary. I swept my flashlight across the expanse of asphalt. The beam wavered. My skin prickled, though the air was still. Somewhere in that ocean of parked cars and dark corners, something was watching, waiting. And though I told myself it was just the equipment malfunctioning, a part of me already knew tonight would not be routine. Not at all. At first, I told myself it had to be a prank. Some bored kid with a scanner, bleeding their voice into my frequency. But deep down, I knew better. The radio had gone silent, yet the sound, those 2 words, had weight, as if they still hung in the air. The far end of the lot stretched ahead, swallowed by shadows where the bulbs had died months ago. Nobody bothered to fix them. Nobody wanted to. That corner of the asphalt always felt wrong, even in daylight. My gut told me to turn back, call it in, pretend I never heard a damn thing. But my badge, my paycheck, my pride, they all said otherwise. So I walked forward. Each step rang out louder than it should have, bouncing off empty cars like echoes in a tomb. The silence pressed tighter with every yard I covered, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then the radio spat static again, a broken gasp this time, followed by the words, "Help me." My skin crawled. The voice was closer now, too close, like it was being whispered directly into my ear. I snapped my flashlight forward. The beam jittered with the tremble of my hand, and that's when I saw her. An older woman, hair gray and wild, strands sticking to the damp hospital gown that clung to her thin frame. She was standing in the black stretch of the lot, arms waving slow and frantic like she'd been calling out forever. My chest tightened, heart pounding hard enough to hurt. I swallowed, ready to call out, ask if she was lost, injured, maybe a patient from the clinic across the road. Then I noticed. Her gown brushed the asphalt, but never touched it, because she had no feet. The light from my flashlight seemed to bend around her, flickering just enough to make me doubt my own eyes. She lifted her hand higher, trembling, her lips shaping the words I already dreaded. "Help me." The sound crawled down my spine, hollow and cold. My legs wanted to run, but my body betrayed me, locking me in place. I couldn't look away. The parking lot wasn't empty anymore, and I realized I wasn't on patrol. I was being summoned. I froze, heart hammering so violently, I swore it might echo across the lot. My flashlight beam jittered, a weak cone of light skating across the cracked concrete. It flickered, dimmed, then flared back, as though it too was afraid of what stood before me. The woman's lips were moving, but that wasn't where the sound came from. The voice poured from my radio, crawling with static, each word splitting into shards before stabbing into my ears. "Help me! Help me! Help me!" over and over, like a broken prayer, like something trapped in a loop it couldn't escape. Her eyes, God, her eyes locked onto mine. Black pits deep enough to swallow every thought, every excuse, every rational reason to turn and walk away. She lifted one trembling arm, bones like twigs beneath paper-thin skin, and she beckoned me closer. The night around me constricted. The silence grew heavy, pressing down on my chest. My legs twitched, torn between obedience and flight. Every instinct screamed at me, run, now, but I couldn't. Something in her gaze pinned me to the asphalt, like I was a moth under glass. The radio hissed, a shriek of static that nearly burst my eardrum. My hand shot to the dial, fingers shaking, and I slammed it off. The sudden silence was worse. The world felt too still, as though even the air had stopped moving. Then my flashlight stuttered. The bulb dimmed to a sickly yellow, fluttered like a dying heartbeat, and finally snapped to black. I stood in suffocating darkness. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. I smacked the flashlight against my palm, desperate, panicked. Nothing. Then a faint glow, the beam sputtering back to life, weak, unsteady. I swept it across the lot. Empty. She was gone. The space where she had stood yawned with darkness, deeper than the rest of the night, as if the shadows themselves had swallowed her whole. The hair on my arms bristled. My chest clenched so hard I thought I'd pass out. Because I knew, without question, without logic, that she hadn't disappeared. She had moved, and she was closer than I dared to imagine. The silence that followed was unbearable. A silence so thick it pressed into my eardrum, smothering the world. No wind to stir the branches, no crickets, not even the steady hum of the parking lot lamps. Just me, stranded in the dark, pulse pounding like gunfire in my chest. I didn't remember moving, but suddenly I was at the door, fumbling with the keys, nearly dropping them twice before I got it open. The moment I stepped inside, the heavy air lifted, replaced by the stale, safer smell of burnt coffee and cleaning supplies. I slammed the door shut and leaned against it, gasping. When my shift ended, I told myself I'd never speak of it, not to anyone. But fear is heavier when it festers in silence. So later, in the guard room with the clock pushing toward dawn, I let it spill. They listened, at first with that half smile men give when they think you're telling a joke. But the smile drained quick. One of the older guards, Bill, the kind of man who'd seen every shadow this place had to offer, just shook his head. His eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. "She died out there," he muttered finally, voice low, like the walls might be listening. "Years ago. Car accident. Never made it inside." My mouth went dry. He went on, slower now, like each word was pulled against his will. "Some nights, new guards hear her, radio, or see her in the lot, waving, calling. Not all admitted. Fewer stay after they do." A chill crawled up my spine, rooting me deeper in the chair. The others stayed quiet, but I caught the way they avoided looking at me, as if my story had summoned something they wanted no part of. That's when it hit me. I wasn't the first. I wasn't even special. I was just the latest unlucky bastard to cross her path. And the worst part? They spoke about her like she wasn't gone. Like she was still out there, waiting, calling. The next time the radio hissed to life in the dead of night, they wouldn't need to tell me who it was. I already knew. I still worked the night shift. Same badge, same coffee gone cold, same lot stretching out like a graveyard under buzzing lights. But everything's changed. Or maybe I have. Now, when I step outside, I don't see an empty parking lot anymore. I see a stage, a place where something is rehearsing the same scene over and over, waiting for the next fool to stumble into it. I walk faster these days, keep my eyes straight ahead. The other guards laugh, call me jumpy, but I see the way they flinch at static. They've heard her too. Most of them just pretend they haven't. Sometimes the radio crackles, just faint enough to pass for interference, just loud enough to make my throat tighten. Help me. Soft, insistent, closer than it was the night before. I tell myself it's nothing, the wind in the wires, memory stitched into the concrete like a scar that won't heal. But when I cross that far end of the lot where the bulbs burned out years ago, I feel the air change, heavy, watching, waiting. And here's the part I don't tell anyone, not Bill, not the new hires, not even myself if I can help it. Every time I hear her, the voice isn't just closer, it's clearer. One night I swear I felt her breath on my neck as she whispered it. Maybe she's trying to get inside. Maybe she already has. So if you're ever on the night shift, security guard, nurse, janitor, it doesn't matter. And you hear that voice on a dead frequency calling for help, don't go looking. Don't answer back, because once you do, she'll know your name. Thank you for listening to the Parking Lot Caller. If this story gripped you, like the video to help it reach more people who love chilling true stories. Subscribe for daily content and share this with someone who'd get goosebumps hearing it. There's another story recommended on your screen right now. Don't miss it. I'll see you back here tomorrow night, if you dare.